Hi everyone, I'm Adam from Trade with Precision and welcome to IC Markets Market Commentary. So first of all, let's have a quick look at the dollar index. It is still within the range. This is very important as a general rule of thumb with ranges. Until we solidly break out of a range, just always accept the possibility that it may fail. So we can see this week we actually finished with a very strong pushback into the range, and therefore we are still in the range, and therefore we might continue to see that dollar strengthen this week. Just be prepared for that. If we have a look here at euro dollar, it did actually manage to close up a little bit higher. If we go to the weekly chart here, we can see quite a strong rejection candle there. We might have to adjust this, but it does make sense that at least there's going to be a little bit of lack of direction on euro dollar for the initial part this week. It may come back into the range, but it might also find support. Keep an eye on that. If we compare this again to GBP failing to break up through resistance. Also, you can see a strong rejection there. So all of this very much driven by that US dollar at the moment, and it failed and is still stuck at that 1.37 or stuck below that 1.37 level. If we go ahead and have a look at dollar yen on the monthly, you can see a big wide ranging engulfing bar, but also indecision. So what does that mean? It means that right now there's a big battle going on with dollar yen. We gap down a bit and it really doesn't have a clear direction. It's not in an uptrend anymore. It is struggling with resistance. So I'd watch and keep an eye on this. We might see an actual new trend to the downside, but there is no clear trend here. Okay, so what does it mean? Uncertainty prevails essentially. One of the charts, one of the majors that isn't really so uncertain is dollar Swiss. We could see a bit more of a move. It's likely a move towards safety here. So we could see that the Swiss franc is relatively stable. We could see a move where that is continuing to strengthen over the dollar, or the dollar is weakening. One of the things I would do is just have a look at the bigger picture here. You can see that in the past, when it's moved down here, the S&B has intervened. So just be prepared for that. So that being said, they have intervened in the past, and we do have a nice downtrend here. So for now, the downtrend is intact. The S&B is not really speaking about intervening just yet. And it does really seem to be a movement that for the time being is going to remain intact. So just noting that, because out of the majors, this is one of the ones that does have a direction that wasn't, where that direction wasn't disrupted this last week. Now let's have a look at gold. So gold's monthly candle, although we can see a strong rejection here and it's very overextended, that monthly candle might still continue to the upside. If we go to the weekly here, you can see we did produce a bit of a bearish rejection here. My expectation, at least initially, is to see a little bit of a further continuation to the downside, but ultimately this longer term trend to the upside may still remain intact. Having a look at it here from a daily perspective, I'm going to look and see if we do continue down, but also if we ultimately produce a strong recovery this week. So this week I'm looking for possibly a bit of a, I'll monitor the low. If we break the low, we'll see a bit further of a move, but we might actually stay above it. So the daily is going to be interesting to watch. Monday and Tuesday, do we form strong bullish candles here and then ultimately attempt to move higher? So be prepared for it. I'm leaning 60-40 here that it'll attempt to stay where it is. We might see a little bit of a further downside. We might ultimately finish up. This area seems to be quite a strong area. Silver showing a bit more of a stronger rejection of those levels, and therefore I would think further downside makes a lot more sense. But again, notice how we closed above these levels here, and again in this area, this is a very nice release of that buying pressure, very much overextended, and yes, getting rid of it. But if it was heavily to the downside, it would have closed lower, which means that it would show intent to go further down. Instead, what it did was it's let off some of that selling pressure, that buying pressure, and then managed to recover a bit. That's why I'm expecting to see if it can hold and continue up this coming week. Having a look at the US markets. All right, so here you can see we're still in a bull market here. That bullish candle is still looking nice and strong on the monthly. From a weekly perspective, we had a bullish candle this last week and we managed to push up, but we are definitely losing that angle. Very, very bullish here, becoming more and more sideways. And so again, this week could simply just be a little bit more sideways behavior. Just be prepared for that. For day traders, it's leaning to the upside, but it's just not really trending in a very strong fashion. US tech as well, let's go straight to that weekly chart. You can see again, we go in just struggling to break above that 25,000, let's call it 25,900 level, and a bit of a rejection here. So I think this week we could see a little bit more downside and sideways motion with the NASDAQ, with the US tech. Then having a look at the mini Russell, the Russell 2000 small cap companies actually doing a little bit better in comparison. From a weekly perspective, we've got a nice strong uptrend. Potentially this week we could find ourselves producing or finishing this coming week with a strong bullish bar. If that happens, then my expectation is that this trend will remain intact, especially if we can break the high in the coming weeks. So this week, not really expecting much, possibly a little bit of move down and possibly finishing higher. So let's see, it's in a really good place to come down, test this level, and then finish a little bit stronger if it does that. Of course, if it finishes much lower, that implies that the following week we'll see a bigger correction in the markets. But small caps are doing better than the larger ones. Going away from the US, very, very strong monthly candle. We look at the weekly. I laugh because it's unusual to see this, and it's still holding. So right now we haven't even pulled back much, and the market is very keen to continue. So here we are getting out of a consolidation breakout, finishing with Friday with a nice strong bar. We've got a little bit of resistance where we are, but I do expect it's going to attempt to break out and continue upwards. Let's compare that to Euro stocks, also looking pretty good. Go to the weekly here. We can see we've pulled back here, just making sure I zoom in correctly. Bullish candle. Didn't really go anywhere here, but overall this is still looking strong. I'd expect the markets, unless there is a surprise big drop in the US markets which pulls this down, I would expect this to attempt to continue or finish higher this week. It's very messy at the moment, but the flow is still to the upside. Then having a quick look at the ASX. Look, again here we've got a very nice pullback, small bullish inside candle. We broke through to the upside. There's some resistance here, but the flow is still pushing higher, guys. A little bit messy for this last week, but still, as I said, that flow is still moving to the upside. And then very quickly, finally wrapping up on Bitcoin, pulling right back into the lows. This is definitely starting to lose its bullish momentum. This is a strong bearish engulfing bar, strong level of support. We're going to have to see if it does break through that. If it does, then it makes sense. We'll see a continuation to the downside, probably closer down towards the $60,000 level. But this level could very well hold. It could be forming a head and shoulders, so we might find that it actually holds and continues up, and then we do a lower shoulder, and then we see a change. But for now, it's leaning bearish and sideways, so I'd exercise some extreme caution here and monitor this support level around that 80,000 level. I'm going to leave you with that, ladies and gentlemen. Please have a great week. Speak soon.